Hello, how are you? Good night. This is Cam. How are you, everybody? Welcome to At This Ungodly Hour. So, tonight I want to talk about black men dropping like flies. And when I say dropping like flies, I mean men in their 40s, 50s are just collapsing and dying. It has happened to so many black men in my community, men who I know personally, and men who maybe a friend tell me about or a relative tell me about somebody who they know, or you read about it. And also a lot of black um, singers, movie stars in their 40s, 50s, getting heart attacks, getting strokes. These are relatively young men, right? Okay. So why is this happening? We tend to make fun of the fact that men in general, they don't like going to the doctor. They prefer to wait it out and see, as opposed to women who would be more likely to go and get checked up, do their annual, go to the physician every year and get their checks done, do their blood work. Women are more proactive in that regard, and men tend to be, I don't want to say scared, but it really boils down to that. They're scared, they're shy when it comes to certain areas. They don't want to be touched, especially not by another male. And so and men, they just have this more casual approach to life in general, right? They don't. I remember watching a comedy, a sitcom, and the guy was saying, so he was having complaints, um, intestinal complaints, and his wife was saying, let's go get it checked out, right? Let's go to the doctor. Let's let them do their tests, let them do their scans, and you see what happened. And he said, why should we bother with this when maybe something that will just drop out while I'm playing basketball? And they tend to have that kind of thing that, okay, they'll just do some jumps and it will drop out. They'll just wait it out. They'll just walk it out. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm not somebody who love to go to the doctor either. I'm not a allopathic um, oriented thinker in terms of my health. I am more naturopathic, right? I more rely on my herbs, my fruits, exercise, diet, that holistic approach. That's my kind of thing. But if you don't live that kind of lifestyle which promotes health, right? If you eat all kind of junk, if you drink, especially if you drink heavily, if you smoke, if you know that you don't exercise, if you know that you don't even think right, you expose yourself to all kind of negative environments, aggressive people, there's this constant war around you. All of these kinds of things are detrimental to your overall health. And if you know that your life is as such, then you should be even more keen to do your checks and your follow-ups. I'm going to read to you two short passages from one of my books. This book is called How to Be a Badass Mother, and it's a collection of passages about family and lifestyle and motherhood. So I'm going to read two short passages that I wrote about this topic that we're talking about, and then we'll continue the discussion. So let me share that with you. All right, so this first passage says, middle-aged black men dying like flies. Some time ago, a man in my community came to me saying that he wanted to enroll his daughter into my CSEC classes. I had taught her several years before when she was at primary school. He committed to taking her, but then he just never returned. This sometimes happens, and it can be for any number of reasons. But with this man, I remember thinking to myself that he had copped out and that he was just not as committed as he was fronting. He never called back, and I never saw his daughter. So I saw this man this morning on my way to do my laps. At first, I didn't recognize him. I knew him to be a stocky, hearty man in his early 50s who did carpentry and so was fairly frisky. But this man whom I saw this morning was walking with a stick and was moving at the pace of a sloth, 1 inch per step. He had lost considerable weight and was frail. I had to look really good to recognize him after he called to me. And then he explained that within that same time when his daughter was supposed to start class, he had suffered a massive stroke, which had left him almost immobile. He was barely now able to walk on the road again by himself, and even with the minimal therapy from the public hospital, he was hardly getting on. His speech was also slurred, and it was sad when I remembered the robust fellow whom I had last seen. In addition to that, his daughter had found out that she was pregnant within that same time. She now has a toddler, and she herself is not yet a woman. And so you see, sometimes we make assumptions and we just don't know what is happening in people's lives. And I remember this particular morning that it happened a couple years ago, right? So this was a man who he's a carpenter. So he wasn't overweight or anything, but he had some body to him, right? He was stocky and fairly frisky. As a matter of fact, he had fathered a child. At the time when I just met him, he had a 1-year-old, I think. He had fathered this child. And when I saw him again, it was like a completely different man. And this is somebody in his 50s, right? 50s. He was barely going. I'm saying, how you get a massive stroke? This is a fairly young man. And this has happened to a lot of other men. Just a couple weeks ago, someone who I saw in my community, he grew up in the community. He's just 40 years old. He collapsed from a heart attack. I've seen it happen to so many black men in their 40s and 50s. The next passage, so this other one here says, more on black men dying. I've been watching him every morning. So this is the same man. It is heart-rending to see a man who was apparently hearty and hefty, now barely able to move 1 inch per step, leaning on a walking stick. I'm sure he feels terrible inside, seeing people step past with Sprite. My brothers, please take care of your health. I've heard of so many men in their 40s and 50s dropping down from heart attacks and strokes. When I go to the field in the mornings to do my laps, for days on end, it's only women I see. When the odd man does turn up, he does a couple laps and leaves, while the women are doing 10, 15, 20 laps routinely. Yes, there are more men at the gym and at the dojo, but those are mainly guys in their late teens or 20s, 30s max. Once they hit the 40s, most men just let themselves go and exchange the six packs for 6 more inches of belly fat. Also, some jobs are heavily taxing on the nerves. Some men work with power drills, power saws, and other heavy duty equipment that are rigorous on the muscles and the eardrums. And I am sure over time they have an accumulated degenerative effect on the nervous system. These are physically and mentally stressful jobs. Brothers, just be mindful and take adequate rest as needed and beneficial exercise. Of course, this goes hand in hand with a healthy diet. We need you guys to be around for us and the children and for yourselves. So, those are just 2 passages. Again, they're taken from one of my books, How to Be a Badass Mother. But and the last point that was made, the point about the fact that a lot of our men, a lot of our black men, the jobs that they do are very dangerous jobs, very stressful jobs. It expose these a lot of these jobs expose our men to high levels of toxic chemicals, toxic fumes, the powerful machinery that they have to hold in their hands, shaking them, the just the overall condition of their work environment. It's toxic a lot of times. The noise, the chemical pollutants is very stressful on the body. And they tend to take it for granted. So you might have some men working they're in the workshop. The workshop is not very well ventilated. You have they're spraying, they might be spraying varnish on furniture, or they're spraying some heavy duty chemical stuff on whatever, or they're working with these pungent oils and other chemicals and breathing in these fumes in enclosed spaces, and they'll just laugh it off. They'll just say, well, it's just part of the job, and they're tough, they're used to it, and they take it for granted. And these are things that accumulate in the system, and especially when they're not eating healthy, they're not taking care of their diet, they're not getting adequate rest, they're not getting adequate fluids, they're not taking time out to just sit and meditate. Sometimes they're all over the place. They don't stay at home and just relax. They have to do the road, they have to do road, they have to be on the road all the time, hanging out here and there and exposing themselves to all manner of negativity. It takes a toll. Men, I know you tend to think that you're invincible. You tend to think that you're unconquerable. But these things slowly eat away at you, and they slowly accumulate in your system, and then all of a sudden, boof, you just drop. Boof, you're just dead without warning. Well, the warning was there, but you ignored it. You didn't think it meant anything because you think you're just tough and you're invincible. A lot of times I look at some pretty young guys in their 20s, 30s. Some of these are guys who I taught, and they might not be in their 20s, 30s. They have gray hairs, a lot of the head gray. I'm talking about 20 odd year old, 30 odd year old. They have gray hair. Some of them start to bald. And another thing I notice, which I'm not necessarily promoting it, but it's just an observation. I notice that a lot of these guys, they are childless also. They don't have any kids. Again, I'm not saying they should, because a lot of them not in the position to even support themselves, let alone a child. But I'm just saying, when I was growing up, in the community, I have 20-year-old men, 30-year-old men, they would have kids. They would be very productive in that area. Not that they should have been, but they they would be, right? Yes, Natasha is saying this is something that she has noticed, right? This is what Natasha is saying. Men, very young men, if you compare them to the young men when you were growing up, the young men who used to strut around the community like peacocks, right? Very virile, very strong, able to lift things and run up the hill and do certain things. These young men nowadays, they can't do it. A lot of them are alcoholics. In their 20s and 30s, they are serious alcoholics. I mean, like, you wake up in the morning, you see them walking down the pathway, 7 o'clock in the morning, they have a flask of rum in their hand. As early as the daylight, they have the rum, they have the ganja smoking, or they have the cigarette before the sun even come up. These are young men I'm talking about. A lot of them, if you look at them, they start to go bald already. And they have gray hairs and the bare belly in their 20s. And so by the time they reach 40, 45, they're dropping like flies, getting heart attack and stroke. And a lot of them, by the time they get to this age too, they have a lot of issues with their pancreas. Because why? Them used to run the place hot, because they feel like their body, they just felt like they could do anything for as long as ever, right? There's no time limit. And so a lot of these men were very promiscuous in their teenage years and their 20s. Very promiscuous, several sexual partners, just ramming it day in, day out, and not understanding that their body is flesh and blood and it wears out. A lot of these men are quick to tell women how their bodies wear out. And they don't realize that the same thing goes for all of us. We age and our bodies wear out. And if you rev it too hard, whether you're male or female, if you rev it too hard, it's gonna give way on you too soon. It's just a reality. And men tend, the other day I did a video, why are men so delusional? Men seem to have this capacity for self-delusion. They have a knack for deceiving themselves. And they tell themselves that, oh, everything is okay. It can't happen to me. I'm the baddest of the bad. And lo and behold, bam, it happened to them. And the women, by comparison, they are more inclined to take better care of themselves. So I'm appealing to the men. Stop thinking that you're invincible. Start living your life more conscientiously. Start being more conscientious. Be careful where you put your body and who you expose yourself to. Be careful about the food that you eat. Be careful about what you drink. Be careful even about the thoughts that you think. Be careful around the people, about the people that you go around and expose yourself to. The conversations that take place around you, those affect you, you know. They affect you, the conversations that take place around you. If you go around people who are always having stupid conversations, and people are always talking gossip, and people are always just trying to tear down other person, it's going to influence you without you knowing it. It's going to rub off on you. If you go around people who are constructive and people who are always trying to better themselves and uplift each other and progress in life, that is going to rub off on you too. A lot of men, especially black men, they don't like the idea of settling down. They consider themselves to be the forever bachelor. Forever bachelor. The only time most black men ready to settle down is when they have become decrepit and of no use to anyone, and they have 1 foot and 3 toes in the grave. That's when they're ready to marry. For most black men, they don't settle down. So it's like the people who don't mean anything to them, the random people out there, they get the best of them. And then the one who they choose to settle down with, that person gets the worst of them. That person get the dregs, the what left. Black men, you need to be more conscientious. You need to respect yourselves more. You need to respect your bodies and respect the people who you say you love. Because when you throw yourself around and then you have someone who you say you love, shouldn't that person deserve the best of you? If this is the person you love and want to start a family with, isn't that the person who should get the best of you? It's a part of our culture, and we have double standards. We have double standards for males and females, but it's backfiring on the men because you don't seem to realize that you're flesh and blood. These same double standards where you think it's okay for you to throw yourself around and knock yourself about, it's backfiring. So many men in their 40s and 50s are just dropping down and dying, just collapsing and dying. Heart attack, stroke, the stress. It has to do with your lifestyle. It has to do with your lifestyle, the way you live. There's this thing on the internet now, they call it hospice care wives, where it's like a trend where, you know, the hospice is a place where people go to die, right? When the doctor can't do anything more for you, you are sent to the hospice. If you don't have anyone to take care of you at home, you are sent to the hospice to spend your last days. And it's called hospice care wives because a lot of men in their youth, they throw themselves around, they squander their resources, they give their money to people who mean nothing to them just for instant gratification, just for pleasure. They don't invest, they don't take care of themselves. And so when they get to the age where death is staring them in the face and the reality comes home to them, then they're looking for someone to stay and take care of them. And that's when they're ready to marry, because they need someone to sit in the hospice with them and feed them and wipe their ass and do the things that they can't do for themselves, which is a totally selfish way to live and very unfair for people who you claim to love. So don't be one of those persons who squander your good years, squander your resources on people who mean nothing to you in the long run, because it was just a fling, it was just a good time, but there was no deep connection, there was no deep care. And a lot of times, as we all know, children result from a lot of these hookups. Children are produced by people who you don't care about, you don't love, you don't even bond, you don't even like them, to be honest. You don't like them, but they end up having your children, and then you will end up having to co-parent with them, and it causes the hot mess that we see happening around us now, right? The hot mess where you have people forced to co-parent, and they themselves, they can't stand each other, and sometimes because of that they can't stand the children, and they take it out on the children, and they take it out on society. I would like to encourage men, well, women too, but as I said, women don't need much prompting in this area, because women are proactive when it comes to their health. When I go to the field in the mornings and I'm doing my laps, if you have 20 women, you might have 3 or 4 men by comparison, right? The only place you'll see a lot of men is in the gym, or if they're jogging, it will be like men in their late teens, 20s, maybe a few early 30s. Once they touch 35 years old, they tend to just give up on all of that. They give up on the health consciousness, or at least the physical fitness. And then you start to see the big gut, the bare belly. Some of them look like they're 9 months pregnant, ready to put down. Some of them look like they're carrying twins and triplets. They're competing with the legitimate pregnant women walking around. A lot of these men are permanently pregnant. Permanently pregnant. So I would encourage men. There is this thing called the executive profile, right? It's not a new thing, but it's something that has caught on because several persons have told me about, have mentioned it to me. The first person who told me about it is this gentleman who he does laps on the field in the mornings with me. He's in his 40s, his late 40s, probably early 50s. We talk sometimes when we're doing the laps, and he told me that he went and got his executive profile done. So the name of the comprehensive testing is the executive profile. Maybe some medical offices have a different name for it, but pretty much it's a very comprehensive series of tests that you go and you do. So there's one for men and there's one for women. A lot of the tests are similar, but then because men and women are different, so some of the tests and the scans and the examinations will be different. They are pretty much the same cost. On average, it's about 17,000 Jamaican dollars, 18,000 Jamaican dollars, thereabouts, to do the test. A relative of mine did hers recently, and when I say comprehensive, it's a very comprehensive examination. It was the results that she got back was a 4 pages of results, and she said that she's still awaiting 2 more. So she was awaiting the liver test and the kidney test results. So those 4 pages that she got back, those were the blood work, the urinalysis, and so they tested her hormones, the hormone levels, they tested glucose, protein, mucus, almost everything that need to test for. In generally speaking, the general indicators, they test for it. So it's something that I'm recommending for men especially to do if you're in your 40s, if you're in your 50s and above. Do your executive profile. This is something that you could do every year, every 2 years. For the men, of course, they're going to do the exam to see how your pancreas is, and that's a rectal exam. A lot of men are scared out of their wits about the rectal exam. I mean, I understand it because especially in our culture, where Jamaican men and their rear end, there is a very sensitive area for them. They don't want anybody to go near it, and especially not a male physician. But it's the most effective way of examining the pancreas through the rectum. Just relax, submit yourself, men. Other men have done it and they survived. You don't need to feel ashamed. You don't need to feel embarrassed. You don't need to feel scared. It's a routine procedure that other men have survived, and you are going to survive it too. Right? Because a lot of men have enlarged prostates, and several factors can cause it. And it's a way of diagnosing abnormalities with the prostate so as to prevent further deterioration and abnormal growths in the area. Right? So definitely this is something that I would recommend for men to do. I'm saying men because that's who I'm focusing on tonight. I know that most other women, they have their thing down pat, because it's personality differences, gender differences. Women are just more keen on these areas and more willing to go and check things out, which is why women tend to outlive men. It's not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons why women tend to outlive men. They are more willing to go and check early and to follow up and to be proactive in terms of maintaining their health. They are also more disciplined in terms of sticking to a routine. So, for example, an exercise routine or a diet routine, diet restrictions. Women are more disciplined in those areas. Men, you just need to make yourself more disciplined. Don't you want to be around to be there for your soulmate, be there for your partner? Don't you want to be around for your kids to see them come to their fruition and to see your grandkids? A lot of times it's just grandma who is left back to see her grandkids flourishing and thriving. A lot of times in families, who is usually gone first? Grandpa. And grandmas might outlive grandpa by decades, 10, 20, 30 years. Grandma's still here and grandpa gone a long time. Wouldn't it be better if they were both here as the matriarch and the patriarch of the family to help stabilize the family, to help be a role model for the youngsters coming up? Black men, you are almost an endangered species, and a lot of it is your own doing, your own behavior, your own attitudes. It has to stop with you. It has to stop with you. You have to make a decision that the pursuit of pleasure, that instant gratification that you crave so much, you have to stop making that be your priority. There are other things that are vastly more important. Vastly more important. Because bam, you do that, bam, it's gone. Right? And then you keep doing it over and over, and sometimes it becomes an addiction too, a literal addiction. And as with other addictions, it takes a toll on you. And also, as I mentioned, the different jobs that a lot of our men do, these are dangerous jobs. These are dangerous workspaces. We have to try to make our workspaces more conducive to the health of our men. I remember I went with a friend to a mechanic, an auto workshop off Agley Park Road, and I was there watching the men. So they were in the room. First of all, these places are usually not well ventilated, almost no air coming in. They're dark, so that's gonna affect the eyes. They're dark. The noise from the machines. Sometimes they're using the welding machine. Sometimes they're using these machines that's causing debris to fly into the air. These microscopic debris from metals, and you're breathing in all of that. It's hot, it's dusty, it's noisy. These things take a toll. Men, you are not invincible. You are not invincible. You're flesh and blood. Just like women are, you are flesh and blood. These things take a toll on you. Don't tell yourself, say, oh, me used to it. Me used to it by now. Or I will get used to it. Or may I tough it out. It's just part of the job. A lot of the jobs that you do, they are hazardous. I know the auto repair shops, the carpentry, where you have this spraying and the sawdust flying around all the time. A lot of the men develop asthma and bronchitis from the sawdust. And some of the wood that they use is already treated with chemicals, and then they're shaving it down or they're sawing it or whatever. And all of this, they're breathing in the sawdust, the microscopic particles from it. When you're spraying the furniture, you're breathing that in. And some of them don't even wear the mask. Some of them, they have the mask and they don't wear it. They tell themselves, so, oh, me tough, it not gonna affect me. The other day, one of my students' dad, he died from asthma. He's a woodwork. He does woodwork. He makes furniture. He's a joiner. And he has suffered from asthma for years and years and years. And it finally took a toll on him. So you just have to be careful. Those heavy duty equipment that you have that's shaking you up all the time, heavy duty, and you do this day in, day out, it is taking a toll. Remember, you have nerves running through your body. Those are what take the messages to your brain. And this constant drilling and shaking, it will eventually affect your nerves. So you have to make sure you have the right equipment that go with these machinery. You have to wear the right boots, wear your protective gear, wear your mask, take adequate breaks, get fresh air routinely. Have a certain time when you know you're gonna go outside, get some fresh air, sit and relax. You have to force yourself to do this. And if your boss is insisting otherwise, you have to sit your boss down and explain. Say, boss, remember, this is a toxic environment that we're working in, and we are flesh and blood, and our wives and children need us to be around. Because when you drop down and dead, they're going to replace you by tomorrow. They will. You will be replaced. You will be replaced. You suppose at 40, 50 years old, you're supposed to be looking at another 50 years on the planet at least. Why not? At 40, 50 years, you're a young person. Young smutty. You're a young person. Hi, Eloretta. Yes, thank you. It's a relevant topic because the men, if you notice, think about how many men you have heard of and know of in recent times, whether you want to start with the men in the limelight, the movie stars, the singers, the news anchors, the sportsmen, footballers, basketballers in their 30s, drop down dead. Think about how many of them you have heard about in recent times. Yeah, some of them have high blood pressure, diabetes in their 30s, A lot of these men in their late 20s, 30s, they have been diagnosed with diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity. And they're just going until bam, no more them. I'm telling you, if you are 50 years old, you should be planning for the next 50 years on this planet. Easy. You should you should be planning for your spouse and your kids to look forward to seeing you there, so you can share in what you started. You can help, you can sit and bask in what you started. Think of how many families, who left back? The grandma is there. Where is grandpa? A lot of the grandpas gone long time, years ago, donkey years now, because they did not take care of themselves. When I was growing up, what the men did, this happened, this started long ago, it's not just now, it's more prevalent now. It's more prevalent, much more prevalent. And like I said, it's getting, the age is getting younger and younger. When I was growing up, the men who you saw in the rum bar were in their 50s, 60s, maybe late 40s. Who is in the rum bar now? Go to the rum bar and look. Who is there now? Men in their 20s and 30s, drunk as butt, rumhead in them 20s and 30s, stiff, stone drunk. And then they're smoking the ganja or the cigarette from the sun come up in the morning till the sun go down in the evening. And then they're drinking all kind, and because they have been diagnosed with these ailments now, right? So because they have the diabetes and the high blood pressure, at their tender age, what happened now? They have to start taking medication for these conditions, right? Yes. So these medication, it starts to affect their sexual performance. It's affecting their libido. It's affecting, some of them can't even get it up anymore. They have erectile dysfunction. They have premature ejaculation. They can't function properly anymore because of these medication that they have to be taking. When you're on diabetic medication and high blood pressure medication, it will affect your blood flow. It will affect how your organs respond. It will affect how you perform in bed. And then now, so they try to boost up the performance. They want to, they drink boom several times a day, and then they get these concussions which they think is going to help them to perform in the bedroom, and a lot of these things only make the situation worse. Men, you need to take care of your diet so as to prevent these illnesses in the first place, so you don't have to take these debilitating medication that will stop you from performing in bed. And you know how you pride yourself when it comes to your performance in bed. You know what great pride you take when it comes to how you perform in bed. Black men, you know you pride yourself on that. So when that is taken from you, then you're going to sink into depression. You're going to stress out yourself because you're not performing. And then you keep living the unhealthy lifestyle that caused the illness in the first place. It's just a downhill slope. You have to eat healthy. You have to include more fruits, vegetables, water in your diet. Cut back on the whole heap of meat. Cut back on the whole heap of carbs, especially the processed foods, the fast food. Cut back on those things and try to improve your diet. Diet is a key factor to longevity. Also, be careful of who you expose yourself to, the company that you keep. A lot of you may think, oh, she just talking nonsense. The people who you expose yourself to, the people who you call your friends, the environment that you frequent, these things take a toll on you. Whatever you have bombarding yourself with constantly, it takes a toll on you, believe it or not. Try for a week, or if you can go for 2 weeks or a month, try a different environment, try more healthy foods, get up and go for a walk, do it for a week, do it for 2 weeks, do it for a month, and see the difference. You're going to feel different, you're going to walk different, you're going to talk different, you're going to think different. Trust me. You're going to feel lighter, you're going to feel brisker, you're going to have more pep in your step, you're going to start even say more sensible things because your mind won't be so muddled. You're going to start think straight and talk straight, and people won't have to be rolling their eyes when you talk. You are what you eat, you are what you think, and you owe it to your children, and you owe it to your loved ones, you owe it to your partner to be around for as long as you can so that you can play your role as a man, whatever you think that role is. If it's a traditional idea and you say, well, the man is there to protect and to guide and to provide, don't you want to be there to fulfill that role for the people who you say you love? You want to leave them stranded with nobody to care for them, nobody to protect them? If you're serious about the role that you say you have, then you should take care of yourself so that you can be here for the people who you say you love. So I'm encouraging you men, go and do the executive profile, go to your general practitioner, or if you don't have one because you don't usually go doctor and them something there, go to the nearest one. Or even go to, I don't know if they offer it at the clinics. I don't know if they offer it at the government clinics. I don't know. But I know definitely at the private doctor. Go to your private doctor. Yeah. Go to your private doctor, ask them for the executive profile. The executive profile going to cost you about $18,000. It's a comprehensive test. They're going to take samples of your blood. They're going to take samples of your urine. They're even going to take samples of your feces. So you're going to have to do in a one little container and carry it back to them, right? You're going to get a little container to do. They're going to tell you how to do it. And then you're going to also bring your samples of your urine. They're going to draw your blood. And they're going to test your liver function, your kidney function, the hormones that you have to see if they're at the right levels. For males and female, we have different hormones and they do different things. And so on the profile, when you get it back, you're going to see what the normal numbers are, and then you're going to see what your numbers are to see whether they are normal or abnormal, and how much more they are or how much less. You'll be able to compare it. They'll test your glucose to see if you have too much glucose in your blood, to see if you have protein in your blood, in your urine, to see if you have mucus, all of these things. They check your white blood cell level to see if there is inflammation in your system. All of those things. It's a comprehensive test. When it's a comprehensive, that means every little thing, the general things, your indicators, your blood pressure, your glucose level, all of those things. I know it can be scary when you have to go to the doctor. Me personally, me not like doctor. Me is one female who don't like doctor. But that's why I try to live a healthy life in terms of what I eat, what I think, how I exercise, what I do, my meditation. I try to do all of them something there because I don't like the doctor them, so I try avoid them. But especially if you know you have not been doing what you're supposed to do, if you know you have been very sedentary, you're not getting your exercise where you know you're supposed to get, you don't even walk, go lock the gate. You don't even walk, go stand up at the gate. You don't even want to walk, go take up the remote. You send somebody for the remote. You send somebody go get you a glass of water. You don't even want to walk, go to the fridge. If you know say you eat all hours of the day and night, all manner of junk, you definitely need to go and see what your levels are so you can know what needs to be done and how urgently you need to get it right. Okay? And just tell yourself, whatever age you are at, you have at least that amount of more years on the planet. Just tell yourself. Because the fact of the matter is life expectancy has increased by a lot. So if you take care of yourself, you should be here. You should be around. Unless it's something out of the way, like accident and those kind of things, which you don't have much control over. But the things that you have control over, take control of them. The things that are in your hands to control, take control of them. Because if you don't, you have nobody but yourself to blame for it. Right? Nobody but yourself to blame. Remember, there are people who love you and care for you, and they want to see you around. They want you to be here to share in life with them. So men, black men, I'm urging you to take better care of yourself. All right, so join me again tomorrow night. We do this every night, rain or shine. I was on the road today and I was so exhausted. I spent the entire day at my daughter's orientation and I came back so exhausted, but I made it my point of duty to get this word in. So rain or shine every night, this is where we meet and we talk about these things. So I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for your company and take care of yourself.